I'm Betsy Scott. I'm the director of the Best Practices Research Alliance. Work here for IBACOS out of Pittsburgh, and we have three great people joining us today for our discussion. Matt Belcher is with Verdatek Solutions and Hibbs Homes in St. Louis, as well as leading the Sustainable Energy Center, being a technology expert, a technical expert for that at the University of Missouri. Verdatek is the, as I understand, the existing homes end of what Matt does, and he works with Hibbs at Hibbs Homes on more of the custom new construction homes in the St. Louis market. And this is just a snapshot of what they do from a performance perspective, but he provided a very intense appraisal addendum form for us today that's from their active house. So Matt, if you could give a 30,000-foot view of what you guys are doing out there in St. Louis, and then we'll walk through your form, that would be great.
I'll do it. Thank you much. And Cliff, nice job. And Sandy, I want to personally thank you with your involvement with this addendum form especially. It's one of the greatest tools since the hammer was invented for us home builders. Because marketing what we do is vitally important, obviously, just to actually doing it. Yeah, we are my building partner and trusty sidekick Tim Hibbs and I build and do deep energy retrofits, rehabs of homes. We don't do small remodels, kitchen baths, that sort of things. We do major projects, which are really pretty enjoyable. Actually, they're a different set of problems to solve. We build everything we can to some third-party verified program. Most of all, the most holistic one, obviously, we use is the ICC 700 program. Obviously, we do Energy Star. Normally, what we're doing, we try to do it at the upper levels, and so we're usually complying with other programs too. Indoor Air Plus and Builder's Challenge, the company we use to do our third-party verification, is certified to do all those programs. So from a marketing perspective, it just gives us a few more arrows in our quiver, if you will, to market what we do. Frankly, I think it's a good thing to have Indoor Air Plus certification as long as you're doing a tight building anyway. So that's our focus. Quality, it's all based on quality, and I know CR is a friend of mine. Meritage is a great home builder. We're a smaller firm, do more custom work and development consulting, that sort of thing. So from a 30,000-foot view, that's what we do.
Okay.
And if you want to jump on over into, I won't spend a whole lot of time. This checklist, this addendum form, obviously it's an old, I think this is probably going on 2 years old, year and a half old anyway. This is a prototype home that we were doing for a specification that was being still under development over in Europe called Active House, not to be confused with Passive House. Active House is very holistic, and it's very similar to ICC 700. We used ICC 700 basically as our metrics, as our checklist, if you will, to build the home with. And since we found out about the HUD addendum that the Appraisal Institute put out a few years ago, we've been using it. We fill it out ourselves simply because we have all the information at our fingertips, so it's very easy for us to do. It's a good communicative tool between us and the appraiser. This particular house was and it's just been finished and occupied by our clients. Is a net zero home, so you'll see a lot of the boxes checked in here. I like, obviously, the new addendum better. It's more reflective of what we're doing, and it's great to see it keeping up with the technology. So as you can see in here, we built this house completely out of structural insulated panels. We used foam insulation in the band joists and other areas that need it, and we're able to put all that information down. We built this also under the WaterSense program since we were able to, and we're also monitoring this house for a year through the University of Missouri on all these different aspects, energy use, the lighting, breaking out the lighting, see how much energy demand there is for there, and even air movement in the house. We're really trying to program these things and learn from it. It's much more efficient to move already conditioned air from one part of the house to the other than it is to condition new incoming air. So we're trying to gather some good data that we can share back with all these other programs too, to see how they work. So as we move on down, it's all based on quality. I grew up building this way. I got gigged on the same spot that Cliff did with the rain down.
I thought you didn't see that. I was just going to gloss over that.
No, it's true. I'm kind of the same way. There was a box there till I checked it, and frankly, I supposedly knew better that ranges weren't Energy Star rated, but I checked it anyway. So it was a free one. And so you can see, even our average utility cost, obviously it's a net zero, and that was based on energy modeling. Obviously, we're going to, we've already got our HERS rating and our final testing done, so, and we're actually going to prove it out moving forward. So, as Cliff alluded to in the comment section, I think more information is better. I know that we're, at best, using an appraiser that is educated in these types of homes, some sort of education in these types of homes, but this particular plan and what we're after, he's not. So this is my, as I see it, my ability to communicate what we're trying to do to that appraiser. And so the more information, the better. I think even with this particular addendum, I added some attachments to it just because there was a lot going on with this house. Mm-hmm. So you can see we defined what we were doing, where insulation was going, and what we were doing with it, insulation under the basement slab, and so on and so forth. So even our, we broke out the energy efficient lighting. There really is, in this form, wasn't a spot for it, but we wanted to point out that yes, all the lighting in this house is all LED lighting. So we just want to call those types of things out. Go ahead and move forward. Thank you. And here's another one I know I'm gigged on. I put 2,000. That's hours. It calls out kilowatts, so the decimal point moves over a little bit, I'm sure. But this is all information that was gathered from our solar provider, and then just transferred over to the form. So at the time this form was filled out, if you go down where it says to be determined, azimuth per array, this particular house, with the design of it, we had, we were using daylight for energy in this household too. So we had skylights, solar thermal for water heat. So we had those collectors, plus the solar PV panels up there. So that roof was pretty hot real estate for all those different subcontractors and partners. So we were trying to still, in our design, get the most bang for the buck. We were the solar thermal, the water provider. They wanted to put a lot of panels up there, but really you had to look at efficiencies, how much we were putting in what particular equipment and what was more efficient, what was the best bang for the buck. And it was really kind of an interesting process to do that, because you're literally are trying to value out the space on the roof as to what devices you're putting up there, both in immediate performance and durability performance. What's going to last for 40 or 50 years compared to what might last for 15 or 20 years. We want to give a nod to that. So
now, did you? Let me ask you a quick question. Did you, or would you suggest, Sandy, since that was to be determined, is it something that you would go back and update the form for this, or was this exactly what your appraisers used?
No, by the time the appraiser got it, we had updated that information, and really, in this particular case, the appraiser that ended up doing this problem, and we ended up with a different appraiser. This was for the construction loan for the client.
Gotcha.
And as we get into the conversation under the next form, we'll talk about, because we ended up using a different appraiser to actually do this than the one that the lender originally arranged for.
Okay.
And so, this information was shared back with them and completed at the time. So this particular form that I had saved as a PDF and then sent to you was one that we were in the process of filling out. It was not the final one that went to the appraiser. And of course, then when the appraiser came to do the takeout appraisal for the permanent mortgage, at that time we had all of the test data, lower door test, the HERS rating, and so on and so forth. So we were able to provide all that certification. We were able to provide all that information to that appraiser at that time.
So you basically provided them with a rough draft and a lot of the background information, at least so they had a jumping off point and some context when they showed up on site. And then you were able to provide all the stuff so they could permanently fill in the blanks when you actually did it. Is that fair?
That's correct. We actually had this particular form at this stage was filled out before the final plans were done.
Okay.
Because we're still obviously spotting the solar PV on the roof and things like that. So some of those items had to be done. So when he got the final form and the final set of plans to do the construction loan, all that information was plugged in.
Okay. So these things were probably updated, right? These things?
That's correct. That's correct.
So these were...
Oh, there. Yeah, was good.
Yeah, so these were just a couple of things Sandy noticed from the appraiser perspective to be aware of when you're looking at the solar section. I don't know if you have any comments on these beyond the notes that you'd provided, Sandy.
Other than I agree with Sandy, she's correct.
If it's an estimate, just put your estimate on there. I understand where you're coming from with that. I worked for a builder many years ago, so I understand that in the beginning sometimes these are estimates. So place what the estimate is. In other words, to allow the appraiser to give some kind of an idea of what the solar will produce and what it will be worth.
Yeah,
good job. And this is one of the very first forms because it doesn't have leased or owned on there. So that was original.
So he's a really early adopter.
Yay.
But I'll tell you what, even, this form is wonderful, even at this stage, because of the information you can share with the appraiser. It makes it a much more straightforward, formal process. And, again, I think, and as you see when we get to the specification we use, since we are third-party verifying, these aren't just things that we're throwing out we might do, to acquire the level of certification we're after. It has to be third-party verified, which certainly has to give the appraiser a little bit of comfort and the lender a little bit of cover as far as making sure these things are achieved, which is huge. It's huge for us from a liability protection standpoint, and hopefully it's also huge for them just for a comfort standpoint and making sure this information is accurate.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, and I'm just going to skip ahead to it, something really cool that you're doing, that you provided this information, and I thank you for that, is actually up front advocating for and actually requiring your mortgage companies, your underwriters, to use appraisers who are educated in high-performance homes so that they can actually read what you've put into your form and understand it and provide that correct valuation. So I don't know if you can share any comments or thoughts on what this has done for you from a valuation perspective.
Well, it has made all the difference in the project that we were just discussing on the checklist, and another big rehab project we did. This was really born out of a conversation with a lender, talking about making sure we get the right. There's great training out there, and the Appraisal Institute is a huge leader in doing this for appraisers. But there's a lot of different appraisal groups groups and different, obviously, just like builders, there's different levels of qualifications and so on. For these types of homes, we're a little bit different than the typical home, especially a year or two ago. You might get comped against a short sale next door or down the street. And we had looked actually on a statewide basis in Missouri at our state rules for appraisers to see if we needed to tweak them or to do something to have appraisers recognize these, especially third-party certified homes, on a little different light. And I always use the analogy of, having an ag background. If I was to sell a farm, the appraisals, the guy doing that appraisal had to be an appraiser that was certified to do that appraisal. He had to have the ag education to properly evaluate that property. And we use the same analogy with these homes. They're more specialized. The information in them is straightforward and third-party verified. So working with our lender partners, we developed the specification, and they just have to have an appraiser that has some kind of education. So we know we have a fair shake at getting properly the proper valuation for the type of construction and the equipment. Most of that checklist, or the HUD addendum, is focused on energy. We sell these homes through the economics of them. We don't sell green. We throw green in free. That's added value to our customer. That happens because of what we do. But the majority of their expense after their house payment on a monthly basis is energy, our utility costs, plus the operation and maintenance of that home. You take that big piece of the pie, and that's what we focus on, shrinking that. And to get to that point, we need to have that property value properly evaluated to show that we're going to be able to do that on an ongoing basis, not just the 15 or 30 year span of the mortgage, but the entire life of that building, so that building carries value. So we shared that with our lender. It gives the lender the ability. They like it because they are required to select from a list of pre-approved appraisers. What this does is narrows that list to qualified appraisers for these properties. In the baseball analogy, it's like taking your bullpen and making it all left-handers. So it's worked well. We've had 2 projects. The initial appraisal came in way low. The appraiser did not have that required education. The lender disqualified the appraisal and paid for the reappraisal, got the proper educated guy out there, and in both cases the deal was done. So it has been highly successful for us. And again, the lenders like it too. So it's worked well. We're working now with the